Hello everybody, welcome to your Father's Day fish handprint painting class. My name is Miss M, and in front of you, you should have your canvas, and it should be long ways like so. Grab yourself a cup of water. You should have your sponge brush, your large brush, a paper towel. I put mine on a plate, but you do not have to. You can keep yours in your little container. But you should also have your light blue, your green, your black, your red, your orange, and your white paint. Be sure you have all those materials in front of you. If you don't, you can push pause on the video and come back to us whenever you're ready. But let's go ahead and get started. The first thing you're going to do is grab your cup of water and twirl your big brush. Don't worry about your sponge brush, just keep it off to the side. Twirl it, get your big brush nice and clean. And whenever you're done, you can just pat your brush on your paper towel. You don't want too much water on there. And the first thing we're going to work on our painting is the blue and white water background. So all I'm going to do is grab my big brush, put a little bit of blue and a little bit of white on the same time. And I'm just going to be kind of painting a little bit of a slant up and down, like so, trying to go from one side to the other. And it's not perfectly side to side, it has a little bit of a slant to it. Let me go back for more. Have my blue, have my white on my brush at the same time, with a little bit of a slant. I'm going from one side to the next, like so. And I'll continue to do that on the whole front part of my canvas. A little bit of blue, a little bit of white. Going from one side to the other. I want nice long lines so it looks nice and smooth. If you have any bumps, just go over it to smooth it out, but try to go from one side all the way to the other side so you don't have those choppy short movements. And if you want your blue to be darker, you can add more blue. If you want your water to be lighter, you can add more white. I'm just kind of doing half and half, a little bit of both on my brush. And before we start building our fish or our seaweed or anything on top, we do want to make sure this blue is nice and dry. So we don't want to have wet, shiny paint, because if we put our handprint on this wet, shiny paint, it'll all just kind of mix together. So we'll give this some drying time before we put anything on top. A little bit of blue, a little bit of white, all the way from one side to the other. Nice long smooth lines. You can still kind of see the white canvas peeking through. If you don't want to, if you want more of a solid, you can go back and give it a second coat, which means that you paint it, let it dry for a couple minutes, and then go back over it. But if you like this look of kind of seeing the white poking through, one coat will do. And that's what we did in the original. We just did one coat. And if you have a Sharpie at the end of this painting, once everything is dry, if you wanted to write something on the canvas, if you wanted to write the year, you could even do that with your black paint, but be sure everything is nice and dry. A Sharpie could be easier to write with, so that's why I kind of suggest a Sharpie rather than your brush. But if you feel like you can write the year or a special note to Dad with your black paint, do that as well. You can even write it out in pencil first and then go over it with the Sharpie, which is again definitely more recommended than the paintbrush, just in case. All right, so the front part of my canvas is complete. And now I'm going to work on the sides, and I'll do the same thing with a little bit of blue and a little bit of white. I'm going to start on the bottom, and I'm going to give my paintbrush strokes a little bit of a slant to kind of the same direction that it's working up and on top of the canvas, and I'm still grabbing that blue and white. So there's a little bit more of a slant. And if you're still working on the front parts, no problem. You can always pause the video, take your time. But we're pretty much going to be working on the 4 sides once we're done with the top part. And then again on the sides right here, kind of working up into the blue and white that's in the front of our canvas. Kind of coming up and to the right. And be sure you don't see any white canvas poking through. Be sure you don't have any bumpy paint. You want it to be nice and smooth, or it'll just take forever to dry. You want to get your paint nice and smooth on your canvas. No bumps. And up here, I'll do up and to the right as well. So blue and white. Making sure I cover all that canvas area. And then to the right of my canvas. Be very careful. Oop, blue and white on my brush. And just again working up and to the right as well. All 4 sides should be completed. No big bumps, nice and smooth. If you're still working on the front, take your time, no rush. If you're working on any other sides, no rush. Because we will be giving this some time to dry before we move on to the next step, I'll be pushing pause on my video in just a moment as well, making sure none of the blue and white water from my background is shiny. I want to give it some time to dry before I build my handprint on top. So take your time, be sure you've covered all your spots. Then we'll be giving our canvas a little bit of time to dry. And then we can work on top of it. So we're starting from the background and we're building our way forward. Make sure this is all nice and smooth again. Perfect. Double check the sides. Make sure everything looks nice and clean. If you want to make your blue a little bit darker, you can go back and give it another coat. It is absolutely up to you how dark or how light you want the blue to be. Once you're done, you can also wash and dry this brush and kind of put it off to the side for just a moment. All right. I will see you guys in a bit. All right, we're back and we have all let our background blue and white dry. The next step is going to be taking our left hand with our sponge brush. You don't have to get it wet. We're going to dip it in our orange, paint all of our left hand orange on the palm and fingers area, and then just kind of lay it right in the middle. So you want to make sure there's space on the right and space on the left. So let me show you on mine. So nice sponge brush, bring this over, get it nice and filled with orange. I want to paint all of my left hand. Don't forget about the fingertips. I'm going to paint it all orange. And I'll set my whole hand right in the middle, thumb facing down, so the thumb will be facing down. Fingers a little bit spread apart, so you don't want to have your fingers together. I hold it down for about 20 seconds and then I lift straight up. So thumbs down, hold down about 20 seconds, and I push on my hand too to make sure all of the areas of my hand have been pressed against the canvas. Make sure you get a good amount of paint on there. Nice and smooth. You don't want any bumps on your hand too. You want to smooth it out. Side to side. There we go. Once you have painted your kiddo's hand orange, or once they've painted their hand orange, again, remember in the middle, thumb facing down, like so. And I'm just going to push down for about 20 seconds. This is my left hand, so your kiddo's left hand. Make sure to push down at the end of the fingerprints. Nice and smooth. Get all that orange on there. You want it to look nice and good. And then once you're done, you just want to bring it right up, and there's your orange hand. Really cute. If you want it to be darker, you can always go back and just be sure that their hand lays right on top of it again for a second coat of orange, but usually first time around looks great on there. Perfect. All right. The next thing I'm going to do is I am going to let my orange dry for just a little bit. Let me just wipe down my hand with my paper towel. I would definitely advise having your kiddo going and washing their hand with soap and water just to get all that orange off. So once you're done with your handprint, be sure you go wash your hands off with some soap and water and dry it off so you don't have wet hands while you're painting. And we're going to give this a couple minutes to dry before we build anything on top. So again, when it looks shiny in certain spots, it means it's still wet, so you might want to give it some extra time to dry. But I will show you the next step whenever you are ready for it. So if you're still waiting for the handprint to dry, or if your kiddo's still cleaning their hands, you're welcome to push pause on the video. All right, whenever you're ready for the next step, I'm just gonna put this sponge aside. You are gonna take your kiddo's pointy finger, so it could be their left one or their right one. You're gonna dip it right into that green color. So just a little bit of green, not too much. And then I'm going to give my fish a green eyeball. So you'll see kind of like where the opening is right here. I'm going to go up and a little bit to the left and just have them push down on it. Just have them, I get a little bit of a wet paint right here. Sorry. Wipe that off before it dries on there. And you can always take things off of your canvas very carefully before it dries. So let me show you a little trick while I have that accent on there. So it's like getting something on your shirt, pretty much. You want to get it off before it fully dries. I'm just going to get some of that green dot off of there. Put my blue in there just a little bit more. I'm going to go back and just touch it up with a little bit of blue and white on my brush. Perfect. All right. Once I'm done with my kiddo's green fingerprint, I can go in there and maybe just wipe some of it off so you don't have too much on there. But I'm going to go back and get another fingerprint with my kiddo's pointy finger. And then I'm going to come up and diagonal about this far away from the left edge, because I am going to make a hook later on for the mouth. Come up and make another dot by just pushing down on my brush. Perfect. I'm going to get this a little bit more blended. Sorry about that. All right. So I have my two green dots, the eyeball and then the dot that's going to kind of connect to my hook. Once I'm gonna let that give that some time to dry. Once I'm done with those 2 green dots, I'm gonna wash and dry my big brush. So wash and dry, make sure there's no other colors on it. And then I'm gonna make a heart-shaped lip. So it's kind of like a sideways heart. Let me show you an easy way to make that. So you're gonna take your big brush and your red paint, and a little bit lower down from here, you're gonna make a heart shape. And heart shapes can be kind of hard sometimes. So I'm gonna advise you to do like a sideways V shape. So a sideways V shape. And then once you've made that sideways V shape, if you want to go in there and just kind of fill it in a little bit more, so you can have more of a heart shape. Like so. And I did overlap over my hand a little bit. So you'll see it going over the hand just a little bit and underneath the eye as well. So I'm going to go in there and fill in that V shape a little bit more. Like that. See the cute little lips. Perfect. All right, and then I'll wash and dry my brush. All right. My next step is finishing off the hook. With the hook, I'm just going to use my big brush and my black paint. I'm going to come down, leave it a little bit of space. I'm not going to touch the green. And then I'm going to come down again and make almost like an upside down question mark that's almost hooked to the lips. So let me show you that, and then it'll be your turn. And remember, the harder you push on your brush, the thicker the line becomes. So you just want to be on the tippy toes of your brush. Black paint, big brush. I'm going to start off the edge. I'm just going to almost hit that dot. So I'm not going to go completely towards it. So I'm going to come down the diagonal. So that's my first little line. Now you can go back for a little bit more black. And remember, just be on the tippy toes of your brush. You don't want to push too hard. And then an upside down question mark. So I'm going to make the line. I'm going to come more down like this. And then a C shape like this. So it kind of becomes an upside down question mark. So it came down and then a C shape. Looks great. Once you're done with your hook, you do want to really wash and dry your big brush. So be sure it's nice and clean. I'm going to give my big brush a hug, which means I'm just going to wrap it around like so with my paper towel. Get it nice and clean. Be sure that your orange is nice and dry down here, because we're going to start putting some seaweed with our green. And we're going to give a little bit of a wiggle to our brush, and we don't want to go too much higher than our thumb that we made. And there's going to be some shorter wiggles, some longer wiggles, but a nice full area of greenery down here. And remember, the harder you push, the thicker those lines become. So you want to just be on the tippy toes. Don't push too hard on your brush. So here we go. So you want to watch for a second before you jump in. If you're still working on the hook area, please push pause on the video and you'll be good. Good. All right. Little wiggle. Some shorter lines in there. I want to pretty much fill up that space a little bit more. They could even cross one another. Letting go. Perfect. A little bit of a wiggle. I have these little sweepy lines at the end of my seaweed. It kind of looks like just a little bit of sweep. I kind of flicked at the end of my brush stroke. If you don't like that, you can come down the other way to kind of clean it up. But if you like that sweepy look, you're welcome to keep that. It looks good either way, so whatever you prefer. be sure to give your lines a little bit of a wiggle, a little bit of movement with your seaweed. You want it to feel like the water's moving, and so is your seaweed. But be careful, don't go too much higher than your thumb. I overlapped over my thumb area. So a tiny bit of a wiggle. And you have some that are shorter, some that are longer. Go all the way from the left to the right, and then you can always look back and see, okay, I do want to add another one right here. Make it a little bit more full. Again, if you wanted to use a Sharpie, once everything was nice and dry to write something, maybe do it in pencil first and then go over it. Sorry, I was thinking. If you want to just write the year with your black paint in the bottom right, once everything was nice and dry. Just going back for a little bit of green each time. And a little bit of a wiggle. Some shorter lines, some longer lines. Go back and kind of fill up some of that space a little bit more. Some shorter ones to kind of fill up that space a little bit better. But again, you can always kind of take a step back, look at it, see where you want your kind of seaweed to be and how full you want it to be. I think I'm gonna go back and give my blue and white that I smudged another coat. You can always go back and touch things up. Just be aware that if you have a wet color that touches another wet color, it is gonna they are gonna mix together. So sometimes you just need to let things dry before you go back and touch things up. If you wanted to give your red lips another coat, you can too once they've dried a little bit. If you want to make them a little bit darker, you can go back and really wash and dry your brush. Go back for another coat. But either way, your dad's gonna love it. A handprint is always a great gift to give. I hope you had so much fun, artists. If you're still working on your painting, take your time and make it the best that you can. I hope everyone has a great Father's Day, and we'll see you soon.